When I first put on skis like 15 years ago, I don't think anyone would have really guessed just the sheer amount of, school essays I would have written on the sport in every subject, or, just the amazing community that I've built up in the mountains. It's something super special that's just meant so much to me my entire life. I grew up in the Bay Area, and I gradually became more and more hooked with the sport, and I was introduced to it, just through my parents. They were both huge skiers, and I was really, really fortunate enough to have really passionate parents who were willing to support that obsession. And eventually, me and my brother, we joined the freeride ski team at Sugar Bowl, and I was, quickly surrounded by really driven and like-minded friends and coaches, and I was just sucked into this community that was incredibly supportive for me.
What do you guys love about skiing?
Yeah.
Ripping it up.
Yep.
Pushing each other to do cool things. Feels like you're bouncing around on the clouds.
It's very sublime.
Around on the clouds.
Yeah.
Other times it kind of feels like you're like skating, like ice skating on like a cheese grater sometimes.
Feels like you're free. There's nothing holding you back.
The only thing holding you back is you.
No, it's you versus the mountain, yeah.
It's like an ancient form of travel too. People have been skiing for like thousands of years.
Once you find the end, you start again. Just observe the lights that led the way. We're all just dreams.
Skiing, it makes me feel free. I get to interact with my surroundings and play with the natural landscape. There are also just so many factors that are outside of my control, from snow to weather and terrain, and as a freeride skier, I have to navigate all of those, which is just a really daunting challenge that you have to be ready for at all times.
What'd you say?
You have to be confident in your physical and mental capacity.
If you're scared when you're doing something,
It's good
then
for you.
Yeah. If it doesn't scare you, it's not worth doing.
Yeah, I feel like having a hobby that challenges your mental state as well as your physical state is very important.
The ski industry has long suffered from a lack of diversity and inclusivity. In the 21-22 season, 88.7% of skiers and snowboarders identified as white, a result of consistent exclusion and white supremacist ideologies in the ski community and outdoor industry at large. It's easy to attribute this to its high price tag, but this argument is more a scapegoat to ignore the deeper cultural issues at hand.
You look at the price of skiing compared to the price of Disneyland, and the rate increase, it's not even comparable. I mean, Disneyland is on this crazy hockey stick, but it's as diverse as you can get. So
Right.
People are willing to pay for that, those types of experiences if they can see themselves there. And Disney's done a just tremendous job of that. But then also you think about there's the barrier to entry to go into ride a roller coaster is, significantly less than it is at skiing.
Yeah. Skiing requires a lengthy set of hurdles to jump, such as geography, gear, and ski town demographics. Each hurdle also sets unnecessary expectations and racial divides. Inexperienced first-time skiers won't go out of their way to spend thousands of dollars on the gear, instead renting used gear. On the slopes, this creates a visual split between new skiers and experienced skiers, intensifying judgment and exclusion.
We're in ski all the time, so we're going to have good gear and we're going to look a certain way because that's what we do. And so even if there isn't the Jerry the Day or somebody kind of snickering at the person, they're going to show up and they're going to be in their Walmart pants, and they're just going to look and be like, God, I don't look like this. This isn't, I'm obviously standing out and not looking like this guy does.
Ski towns such as Truckee, Jackson Hole, and Aspen are all white, not to the fault of residents, but rather a compounding loop wherein white skiers are drawn to ski towns and alter demographics.
it's a high price to test something that you're not even sure about. And then it's a high price to say, well, okay, it costs a lot. I'm not sure about it. It's far away. And then you go to the website and you don't feel like represented. Or if you do pay and then you pay that money and you get there and you don't feel like you belong, for whatever reason, it's hard to say that you would justify, returning a second time.
Even on the slopes, derogatory elitist ski lingo, terms such as gaper or jerry, in reference to beginner skiers, fuels the alienation of skiers without the same access to the sport, and disproportionately impacts people of color.
So at school, I founded a group for students of color to recreate outside, separate from the general mountain club. And during January, our J term, I was taking people skiing every week, which was so fun. But a lot of these people, they were like super ready to get on the carpet and go all the way up, but they kept wanting to stay all the way on the opposite side by the trees and in a very narrow corridor. And it was super, telling of that internalized culture of, I don't belong here, I don't deserve to take up space, going across the entire slope, or I'm not good enough to go up the carpet yet, even though they were hiking up almost the whole thing.
The truth is deeply rooted in the fabric of our country and in our historic access to the outdoors through agencies such as the National Park System. The United States National Park System is often seen as a symbol of American exceptionalism, a shining example of the country's commitment to preserving its natural beauty and cultural heritage. However, behind this facade of national pride and conservation lies a dark history of white supremacy and systemic racism that has shaped the park system for over a century. White supremacy in the National Park System can be traced back to the earliest days of the parks when they were first established in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Many of the parks were created by displacing indigenous peoples from their ancestral lands and erasing their cultural history from the landscape. This process of forced removal and cultural erasure continued well into the 20th century as the park system expanded and more indigenous communities were pushed out of their homelands. The National Park System also has a long history of excluding people of color from its visitor base and workforce. During the Jim Crow era, many parks enforced segregation policies that prevented black and other non-white visitors from enjoying the same amenities and experiences as their white counterparts. This included segregated facilities, restricted access to certain areas, and discriminatory hiring practices that excluded people of color from park jobs. Another factor contributing to white supremacy in the National Park System is the way in which the parks are marketed and presented to the public. Many of the iconic images and narratives associated with the parks, such as John Muir's romanticized vision of wilderness and the rugged pioneer ethos of Western expansion, are rooted in a white, Christian, male-dominated worldview that erases the contributions and experiences of people of color, women, and other marginalized groups. Centuries of exclusion of people of color in the National Park System and the outdoors in general have led to continued exclusion and disinterest, impacting the diversity and inclusiveness in skiing and other more specific industries. Ski resorts, too, were generally segregated until the passing of the Civil Rights Act in 1964, becoming a place of white leisure while non-white Americans were fighting for basic human rights or living in internment camps. But again, the underrepresentation of people of color in skiing is not solely a result of historical exclusion. The outdoor industry's white history has created rarely questioned traditions and values which fuel the insular, racially homogeneous landscape we see today. Why do longtime skiers feel the need to belittle new participants with harmful words and elitist lingo? Why do so many ski movies, starring adolescent white skiers, often reference blackness with hood, hand gestures, and thug cosplays?
It's kind of this thing that as skiers you're so steeped in, and it's just this accepted part of the culture for so long and by so many, that to say, hey, this is why are we even doing this? People are doing what? Why
are old-timey ski traditions so baked in patriotism, recalling a history that people of color are not represented in.
In skiing, I'd say like traditions like that, in my mind at least, like the fact of who was dictating the culture for so long is reason enough to just doubt it to begin with.
I think the huge part of that is, trying to like deconstruct the story a little bit and trying to find ways in which people can plug in a way that like feels authentic and speaks to people's stories.
Why has the name change of a Tahoe ski resort from an indigenous slur been met with so much pushback?
Wow, okay, this place was renamed because its former name was a slur. Like, I don't think I need to know much else more than that.
It's time skiing leaves its obsession with the past behind. Skiing is on the cutting edge of our Earth's future, and skiers are in a unique position of power to raise advocacy around climate change, sustainability, and conservation.
Just reframing why we go skiing, like it's very, the skiing connects us to like the top of the watershed, right? And like every time we go skiing, we're skiing on the water that will end up in taps or in farm fields or wherever. It's going to end up melting and flowing downstream. And I think in terms of like, we as skiers have a role of talking about the effects of climate.
But addressing current and future issues cannot happen without challenging the very traditions and values of a sport so grounded in a history of exclusion and underrepresentation. Instead of further ignoring the glaring issues of diversity in the ski community, let's highlight the physical, mental, and spiritual benefits of the sport and ensure equitable access for all interested.
I think everyone deserves to have opportunities to be outside and connect with non-human beings, places that are often beautiful and help you see outside of yourself and the rest of people and know that there's much more to the world than just people and the environments that we've built and like the structures and systems that we've built around ourselves.
I think the reason why I've kind of gone on this exploration is just, I want to just question what I've been a part of for so long. I think that's super important, is to, just question the flows that you kind of find yourself in. And I don't think kind of, after kind of conducting all of this research and talking to all of these people, I don't think skiing has to have this rich and white stereotype in the future. But I think throughout all of this is the thing that I've kept coming back to is like just the bottom line of it all, which is that I ski because I love to ski. It's really that simple. I love the feeling of just gliding effortlessly across the snow and flying through the air in what feels like slow motion. I love the feeling of facing my fears head on and forcing to kind of rely entirely on myself, and having to find those my own limits, and oftentimes pushing those limits or crossing those limits to find where my capabilities really lie. It's incredibly honest, and skiing grounds me fully in the present, and I just think that's something that everyone should have access to. I think it's super simple.